Okay, and so now I want to show you how you can use Vinyl Master Pro. I don't use Vinyl Master Pro for any sort of design work. I just use the program for sending my image to the vinyl cutter. So I've got my document set up. To create a new document, you can go to File, New, and then you can put in the different sizes up here in the top right-hand side inside this box. I set this to the width of my vinyl. Right now my vinyl is 15 inches, so I'm gonna set this to 15. And then usually I'll set my height to around like the size of my document. So I'm gonna set this to about like 10 inches here. I'm gonna press tab, and then I'll create my document here. Now what I wanna do, I've got this set up in inches. Now what I wanna do is I wanna drop in my file here. So I've got this downloaded already. Here's my file. I'm gonna click and drag, and I can just pull this SVG file into my artboard here, okay? You wanna check the size of this. So for some reason, when you're importing this in as an SVG file, the file is a little bit smaller. So I know my file is about 4.5 inches wide. So I can resize this a couple different ways. I can drag these corners out. But what I do is I just type it in here. It's 4.5 inches wide. When I press tab, it's gonna resize that for my height and my width to something like that here. It doesn't really matter where you put this inside your document. The vinyl cutter will find the spot for it, okay? One thing that you wanna do is you want to make sure that you flip this. I can go to Object, I can go to Arrange and then go to Mirror and Rotate, and I want to flip this. So I can flip this horizontally, and that'll flip that for me here, okay? When you flip this, because I'm making a t-shirt, I want to flip this so that the vinyl cutter will cut it backwards. The vinyl cutter cuts the vinyl from the back side, and then when you heat press this, it'll read the right way here, okay? So here's my image, everything looks good. If you're using a JPEG image, you would go in and you would use this contour cutting, and you could contour cut that image here. Otherwise, you would, if you're using just an SVG file, you don't really need to use the contour cutting here, okay? All right, so I am ready to send this to the cutter here. To cut that, I can click on this little icon here up at the top, and I can cut that. I'll get this box that opens up. There's some different settings that you can play with here to kind of get it to work. I'm going to change my media width to the same size. It doesn't really matter because it'll cut it however it cuts it, but I do kind of like to be able to see what everything looks like. You can't rotate this or anything like that inside here. Things that you can do is you can add some registration marks or some auto weed boxes. If I press auto weed, that's going to put a box around that here. And that does make it a little bit easier to cut here. Okay. One thing you can do is you can do an area test. And so let me show you what that looks like here. I've got my vinyl set up on the vinyl cutter. So my settings are right now, my speed is 105 millimeters per square inch. My force is at 160. The force is how much pressure the vinyl cutter is going to put down when it cuts the vinyl here. Depending on what type of vinyl you're using, you'll want to kind of play around with those, do some tests on that. When you do a test, you can press on this test button, and that will create a little test, and you can see how it's cutting through it. The vinyl, this is t-shirt vinyl, and so this backside is the carrier sheet, which is this clear plastic. This top side is my vinyl here. When you set this up, you've got a little release button here. You want to feed this through the backside of the vinyl cutter. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to feed this through the backside here, like that. And then when I feed this through, you have these different feet here, and I'm just going to feed this through the vinyl cutter here like that, okay? When I'm feeding this through, I'm checking and making sure that it goes through all the way here, okay? Because of how this vinyl cutter is set up, there's this bar right here, so I can't feed this and put this all the way up against the edge of the vinyl cutter. So I'm setting this up to 1 inch here. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that there's some tension on this. So if I add tension to that here, I can lock this down, okay? And then I wanna make sure that this cutter here is right along the edge like that. With this vinyl cutter, you can pull out the blade here. So if I unloosen this screw, you just want to have the very tip of this visible here, okay? There's this little release valve. You can look at the tip of your blade here. If the tip looks broken, you want to switch out the blade here. This looks pretty good here. If your vinyl's not cutting correctly, sometimes you have to also increase the depth of this blade here. Okay, I'm going to lock this back in here. Okay, and this just screws in like that. I'm going to have this blade be right along the edge here of that. Now, if I want to do an area test, so I've got this set up. This is at the 15 inches here, like that. I've got a lot of tension on this so that when that feeds through. Now, what the area test is going to do is it's going to make sure that you have enough vinyl, both width-wise and lengthwise. If I press area test, it's going to send that to the vinyl cutter. Oops, I got to press yes. So this will check the edge, the right and the left side. Okay, so you see that it dropped this pin here right along the edge there like that, and then drop the pin right here. And it's just checking and making sure. So that's the size of this. So now I'm ready to send this. I'm going to go to cut now. And now it's going to start cutting. So you can see it's starting to cut out my image. It's going back and forth, and then it's bringing the blade down where it needs to cut it. And you can see it's cutting out some of the lines. Okay, so you've got your vinyl here. So this is kind of like what the vinyl looks like after you've picked it. So there's going to be this kind of tacky, sticky carrier sheet. What you'll do is when you make your t-shirt, you'll lay this out down onto a t-shirt like that, you get it into position, and then once you put this under the heat press, I couldn't think of that word for a little bit. Once you put it under the heat press, this will heat press the vinyl onto your t-shirt. It'll bond that vinyl to the fabric of the t-shirt, and then this clear part will just lift right off here like that, okay? So I've got someone's design here. You're gonna need a couple different tools. You're gonna need an X-Acto knife blade, and then you're gonna need this little like picker tool here. When you do this, you wanna make sure that you are pulling this vinyl off and making sure you're not pulling off any like really detailed, delicate parts to this. This person's design looks pretty good. So what you'll wanna do is kind of take a look at this and kind of look up close, see if there's anything that you need to be careful of when you start cutting this. What I like to do is I like to make little slices in the vinyl, so you don't want to pull this off all in one big sheet. If you do that, you're going to create a lot of tension, and you have a higher opportunity of pulling off pieces of your vinyl that you don't want to pull off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this X-Acto knife blade. You're not cutting through both layers here. All you're doing is just cutting through this top layer, so you don't need a lot of pressure. So I'm just going to add like a little cut line here like that. And I'm just going like right up in the edge of her design here, a little cut line like that. Okay, so I'm going to go in between her letters. She spelled out Hawaii, and then I'm going to go in between each one of these letters here. Okay, you could do the same thing if you have like other parts. So then she's got like the different islands of Hawaii here. Again, I'm not pressing down really hard. I'm just like cutting through the top part of the vinyl here. So now what you can do is you can use this tip of the X-Acto knife blade, or you can use this other little picker tool. And you just want to pick off the part of the vinyl that you don't need. If you're the type of person that like picks a scab, this is like the most gratifying thing in the world, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to like slowly peel this up. I'm kind of going with the contours of the design here. So I'm kind of just like pulling away from the cut part. Okay, I'm pulling that off. You want to watch like the little like corners or like the little sharp angles on your design, and make sure you don't pull those off by accident. It's got to be some sort of, yeah. It doesn't have to be like a long soliloquy, you know, it could just be, it's all kind of personal, so it's all kind of like up to you. You know, it could be like one word, a few words, something like that, okay? So now there's that, and now I'm just kind of like working my way. When you cut this like that, it makes it easier when you start to pull off the vinyl, okay? All right, thanks Anthony. Okay, so I've got this laid out and cut out on my shirt here. This bottom part for the heat press slides out here, so you can slide this out, okay? You want to put your vinyl down. You want to do it however you want it. You want to make sure that you get all the little like scraggles and stuff off of the vinyl. Make sure everything looks exactly perfect. You lay this out exactly where you want it to go here. This part slides in like that. I'm putting this on the front side. You want to make sure that your shirt lays nice and flat. That way you can get good pressure on the heat press. This part of the heat press swings out like this. You want to make sure it lines up to the bottom here. I've got this set up for 305. Right now it's about 300. You're going to pull this arm down, okay? And then you're going to press this down arrow, and that's going to set this timer, okay? The timer is going to count down to 25 seconds here. Okay, and what this vinyl cutter is doing is it's actually bonding the vinyl to your t-shirt here. And it should last for, you know, a pretty long time. Most t-shirts are done this way. It should last for, you know, probably, I've had a shirt that I've used and washed it probably 50 or 60 times here. So the timer is going to go off. You're going to press that down arrow button again, pull the arm up here like that. You can rotate this over here like that. This slides out. Now you want to peel this clear plastic off, and I do it kind of slow. That way when you pull that off, you make sure nothing pulls off that you don't want to. If it does, you would just put this back down and then run it through the heat press again, okay? And then there you go.